In October 1962, the world stood still. For 13 tense days, humanity stood on the edge of total annihilation. Two of the most powerful nations on Earth, the United States and the Soviet Union, faced each other in a nuclear standoff that could have destroyed civilization as we know it. This was the Cuban Missile Crisis, the day the world almost ended. After World War II, the balance of power shifted. The world was now divided between East and West, capitalism versus communism. The Cold War was not fought with bullets but with fear, ideology, and nuclear weapons. Both sides built massive arsenals capable of destroying the planet many times over. The doctrine was simple. If one side launched, the other would retaliate, guaranteeing mutual destruction. In 1959, Fidel Castro overthrew the Cuban government and turned the island into a communist state just 90 miles from the U.S. coast. For Washington, this was unacceptable. Communism had arrived at America's doorstep. The United States tried to remove Castro through secret missions, including the failed Bay of Pigs invasion in 1961. The humiliation for the U.S. was enormous, and the Soviet Union saw an opportunity. Under the leadership of Nikita Khrushchev, the Soviets made a bold move. They began secretly placing nuclear missiles in Cuba, capable of reaching major American cities in just minutes. The goal was to counter the American missiles already positioned in Turkey, which threatened Moscow. It was a dangerous game of balance. One wrong move could trigger nuclear war. On October 14, 1962, an American U-2 spy plane flew over Cuba and captured photos that changed history. The images clearly showed Soviet nuclear missile sites under construction. When President John F. Kennedy saw the photos, he knew the world had entered its most dangerous moment. Kennedy called his top advisors to the White House. The options were grim: invade Cuba and risk war with the Soviet Union, bomb the missile sites and provoke retaliation, or blockade the island to stop further deliveries. The president chose the third option: a naval quarantine of Cuba. On October 22nd, Kennedy addressed the nation in a historic television speech, revealing the Soviet missiles and warning that any nuclear attack from Cuba would be met with full retaliation against the Soviet Union. The world held its breath. Soviet ships carrying more missiles sailed toward Cuba, and U.S. warships waited for them. One wrong signal, one nervous commander, one misunderstanding, and it could all end in minutes. Behind closed doors, frantic negotiations took place between Washington and Moscow. American generals urged Kennedy to strike, but he resisted the pressure. He knew a single act of aggression could unleash an uncontrollable chain of events. Then, on October 27th, the crisis reached its peak. An American U-2 plane was shot down over Cuba, killing the pilot. Many in Washington demanded revenge, but Kennedy kept his calm. That same day, a Soviet submarine near Cuba, cornered by U.S. ships, considered launching a nuclear torpedo. Only one man, Vasili Arkhipov, refused to authorize it. His decision may have saved the world from nuclear destruction. Finally, through secret back-channel communications, a deal was made. The Soviets agreed to remove their missiles from Cuba. In return, the United States promised not to invade the island and, quietly, agreed to remove its own missiles from Turkey in the coming months. On October 28th, Khrushchev publicly announced that the missiles would be dismantled. The immediate threat was over. The world exhaled. The Cuban Missile Crisis became a turning point in the Cold War. It showed just how close humanity had come to extinction and how fragile peace really was. Kennedy and Khrushchev realized that communication was the only way to avoid catastrophe. Soon after, a direct hotline was established between Washington and Moscow, a red phone symbolizing hope in the face of fear. In the end, the Cuban Missile Crisis was not only a story of danger, but also of restraint, a rare moment when reason overcame aggression. For 13 days in 1962, the fate of the world rested on the shoulders of a few men, and their choices, made under unimaginable pressure, ensured that the world would live to see another day.